As a clinician, I entered ID at a time when AIDS was first being identified. It was before we had HIV as the cause. It was just a syndrome. People were dead in 2 to 3 years once the syndrome was identified. And you may remember that across the United States, people were afraid, quite literally, because of the risk of bloodborne pathogens and the risk to themselves as care providers. That was not the problem here, and that's not true at a lot of other institutions. People stepped up here and took care of patients, did surgical procedures, did other procedures. And for a more modern era example would be the Ebola outbreak. Ebola hits in Africa, people come to the United States, particularly a transportation hub like Chicago. They have a fever, they need to be isolated because they might have Ebola. And as you know, there were a few real cases that came from the endemic area. And a lot of hospitals had to be ready to take care of patients. This was the one that had thousands of people volunteering to be trained under Dr. Latif's leadership. We had people who, not only did we build out a unit, that a lot of places could do. What's not so simple is to have so many people volunteer to take care of patients. That did not happen across this city. We had a network of institutions that helped to provide care, but this was the place that stepped up the most. It was all of you and so many other people that did that, and it was remarkable. As I took some of these other jobs, I started to see how hard it was and how grateful I was that people like the chairs in different disciplines worked as hard as they worked. They're the people recruiting faculty, keeping student programs going, and each time they were also the ones that sometimes had to take back information like, we can't do this quite yet. That's not a fun message to deliver, and yet people did it in a wonderful way and worked together. Susan Crown talked about when I took over as CEO and president, and at that time there's no question, Rush was having some challenges. But this was not, unlike what Bill Goodyear said, some single-handed thing. This was a whole group of people, starting with you, your colleagues, and your predecessors who didn't leave Rush at that time. It's a simple thing to do, is to just leave. You can go across the street, work at another hospital, don't have to sell your home, could have left. And people instead dug in, worked hard, worked together, shared the fact that I had never done this before, despite what they were saying. I had no idea what I was doing. The truth can now be told, but I was pretty honest about that. I mean, I was always asking all of you what we should do, and none of us could think of better ideas. We did that thing. And for the most part, we all sort of owned it, and so that helps make that thing successful. In all of this, whether it's building a hospital, it was your ideas. It was nursing as far as the shape of the hospital ward. It was other people taking off their time and working on the design of that medical center. All of those things are what really made this place what it is today. And what I got a chance to see going through all these parts was how wonderful the people are that work here. When I was CEO, I also started these town hall meetings on all shifts just to get to know people. And again, many of you don't see the people who work in legal affairs or finance or environmental services or transport, particularly on third shift. Sam, you get to see some of them now, but my son is there, but he's working nights. But what's interesting about that, and what was so eye-opening for me, was the most interesting questions you could not predict where they come from. You could have the most highly technical financial question, strategic question about NIH research. It didn't come from the person you might have guessed. It exploded whatever stereotypes I personally had about people, about backgrounds. It was wonderful to see such an engaged group. And I saw it across the medical center, people working hard just to try to get things right. In those town hall meetings, I saw a lot of other things, but one of the probably the best ways to see how valuable an organization is not only get your care here, but have your family members get your care here. And of course, I was admitted here a couple of times. Once as a resident with asthma, I had some knee surgery here. Then my mother was admitted, and she had a stroke and was admitted here for a while, then went to rehab. And of course, my mother was not the most impartial judge of a medical center that her son was the CEO at. So not shockingly, everything was wonderful. And I knew she was a bit over the top when she said she particularly liked the food. That's really nice, but I'm not sure I can trust it. And then she said, and even there's somebody that comes in at night, there's this really nice man, he comes in like in the middle of the night and sings to me. And so I thought, I thought she was, feeling the effects of the stroke and being admitted for a long time. And I thought, if you're going to have a hallucination, that's a great one to have. And fine. And so she later went home, did okay, rehab, went back to Detroit, and by 3 or 4 years later, passed away. But I will say, I went back to one of those town hall meetings a year or two after that, and somebody came up to me and asked me how my mother was doing, and I said, she was doing great after she left here, but she did recently pass away. And he said, I'm so sorry to hear that. You know, I used to sing to her. And so you think, like, what a wonderful place. I mean, first of all, what a miserable son I am. My mother was demented. I couldn't apologize. And so, but what a wonderful place that you have people that do that kind of thing. It's just, it's remarkable. So I do think that the big strength of this place is really all of you and all of the other people that both preceded you and aren't physically present here today. We have great new leadership, and I'm really enthusiastic about all of them. We have a great, something else I saw the importance of as a CEO. I had no idea what boards do. They do a lot, and they provide a huge amount of support. Not just the financial support, but also just ideas. These are people who've been hugely successful in their lives, and to have somebody you can just share things with and get feedback from is invaluable. You've seen the 2 dogs. Those are the ones I share pretty much everything with. They're extremely close-mouthed. But the board has been incredibly helpful. I would say that every place that really aspires to be great is always aspiring to be even better. And I'm particularly impressed with the work done through the Diversity Leadership Group, Women's Leadership Council, the ADL Task Force, all the work done on the west side of Chicago. These are the things like a great place does. These are the things great people do. And these are the things all of you are involved in to make something great. You know, the last thing I would say is that the thing I'm probably most grateful for Rush is this is the place that I met Mickey. And I was a third-year resident, and Mickey was a cancer nurse. And we met on a rotation then, got married a few years later. Had a couple of sons, one of whom is now in training here. And that was obviously the best thing that ever happened to me. And I know I speak for both Mickey and I, because this is her place as well. Mickey started here as a student, actually a few years before I came here. And so both of us, this has been where our careers have been. It's been a great joy for both of us to both welcome you, whether it's to the Sessions House or other places. It's just been an incredibly great experience for the 2 of us. Thank you very much.